And I think Cade McNamara would be I've been saying it for a year, that Iowa would be a great choice. And people were saying, well, no, because we got Petrus, we got Padilla. I heard that early on, that it was like, oh, no, we don't have room.
And John, here's the thing. People have told me, well, why do you really want to bring in a transfer portal guy? Because that might mean that you have guys that leave. Like, what message is that going to be sending to the guys on your roster? The guys on your roster are the reason you need to go after other guys, because your quarterback room is subpar. That's the whole point. If they leave, like if Alex Padilla has any inkling to want to come back next year and he leaves because they bring in Cade McNamara, have a good day. I mean, you can't stop. I mean, if he's afraid of competition, then he should leave. Like, you don't not transfer, you don't not recruit guys because you're afraid that your other guys are going to jump ship. Anyways, that's a bugaboo of mine. It's a pet peeve of mine when I hear that from people.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. Cade is not going to go to a program where you have to throw 80 times a game. Okay, his style of offense that he thrives in is 2021, where he's asked to be a game manager. He's asked to manage the run game, throw to the tight ends. So if you have a good tight end and you have a decent O-line and you can get a running game together, Cade can make some throws. There were two in particular, one against Penn State last year and one against Nebraska, to Eric All, where they lose those games if that throw doesn't happen. So not only is he a good game manager, but occasionally he might actually be able to get you a win against a close, like when you're close against an opponent. So I think he would be an upgrade.
What doesn't make any sense to me, John, is I respect people's views on here. They can have whatever view they want, but I agree with everything you just said. Like the people who are saying, he's not much of an upgrade. Have you watched Iowa's quarterback room? Like, have you actually? I know you have. I know you watch a ton of Iowa, but have you sat down and watched Iowa's offense? I mean, no, I'm serious. Like, there is not a guy, when you're ranking dead last in the conference in most passing categories, that means that just about everybody else in the conference, if they enter the portal, I would say he should be someone you look at. Now, maybe he ends up not being a fit. There are other factors at play when you're looking at numbers, but typically numbers across the board don't lie. And Cade McNamara, without even giving attention to the eye test, was 1,000% an upgrade from anything Iowa has. Now, would he be able to produce at that level at Iowa? Probably not, because he doesn't have the skill position talent that Michigan has. He doesn't have the offensive line that Michigan has. He's not going to have the run game that Michigan has. But there's such a big gap when you look at the numbers. I don't want anybody can convince me that gap's just going to all of a sudden disintegrate, because that would imply that if Spencer Petrus went to Michigan, he'd be able to do what Cade McNamara did last year. Does anybody believe that to be the case? You've watched Spencer Petrus. I mean,
yeah, I have. Yeah. 1.1 QBR in a lot of the games, so that's
yeah. I just can't believe. What I can't believe is that we've still got Iowa fans who are still pushing that narrative a year after the original discussion, at least for me, transpired about going after quarterbacks in the portal. There's still people who push back and say, the quarterback isn't a problem, or isn't this idea that we have to identify one singular problem. I've been saying this for months. You know that Iowa's offense doesn't get to be 130th in total offense in the country without having issues a lot of different places, and one fix is not going to fix everything. There's not one solution to a dozen problems. Yes, right. You have problems with play calling. Yes, you have problems with blocking. Yes, you have problems with schematics. All these things, they all need to be fixed. But one of the big things that need to be fixed is the most important position on a college football team, and as you know, that's the quarterback.
Yeah. And I don't know where things are at with Brian Ferentz. I haven't heard anybody say there's been any movement there. But the one thing I do know is that Kirk isn't going to magically change overnight to a spread-heavy, 80 times a game, throw the ball type of coach, right? And so as long as Iowa does have that identity of run first, tight ends, etc., Cade's a great choice because he can do that. And he can make, like I said, if you ask him to throw 20 times a game, That's about his speed, right? He's not going to be somebody who's going to, if you have no run game, no tight end, like nothing's happening, and you have to rely on him to Aaron Rodgers you to win, that's probably not going to happen. But if you're in a 22-21 ball game and you need a throw to get you to field goal range, he can do it.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. And we watched it all of last year. I mean,
yeah.
When you saw the first two games, and I thought it was a weird way to make a final decision, having Jim Harbaugh play both these guys against two teams that were terrible. I mean, Michigan, as you know, played one of the worst non-conference schedules known to man.
Oh, Cupcake Central, absolutely.
And so to have these guys play against different teams and try to evaluate, I think that was more of just a way to throw a bone at Cade McNamara. Because
he's a leader of men. He won one of the captain roles because the team loved him so much. And so if you need in that locker room, if you need a leader, if you need somebody who's going to rally the troops, then he's your guy for sure. And I think it would be a good fit.
And this comment here, appreciate the super chat from AV Nurse Patrick. These numbers are 1,000%, I think, an indication of what he gives you. And again, I want to make clear, nobody's arguing the skill position talent is there isn't a gap there. The hope is that, John, with an addition like a Cade McNamara or whoever else you pursue in the portal at quarterback, and I do believe Iowa will pursue somebody. I think they'd be foolish not to pursue Cade. But the assumption here is, and from what I've been told, they are going to not only pursue a quarterback, but they want to pursue skill position guys, receivers. They're fine at tight end. Even with Sam Laporta gone, you got Luke Lachey, Addison Stringer came on strong, Stephen Stylianos hopefully will be ready to produce next year. They need receivers. They need quarterback as far as skill position guys. And then you build around those pieces. Offensive line is, maybe next year with being the third year of George Barnett, he produces a halfway decent offensive line. You've got good backs. So I don't think the idea that skill position talent around Cade is simply the reason why he was able to produce 64% through the year. That in and of itself is a major upgrade.
Yeah, and listen, he's accurate. He doesn't make mistakes with the football. I mean, 6 picks the whole year against some of the defenses we had to face last year. That's pretty good, right? And the touchdown amounts nothing to write home about. He's not, like I said, he's not going to be like an Ohio State or a 50 touchdown a season type quarterback, but I don't think you need him to be. I think you just need him to be competent.
Absolutely. That's exactly. And Kirk, that's the other thing. People who say, Pat, and I love Pat. Pat's always on here. And Pat says, I want a dual threat guy. Well, Pat, does Kirk want a dual threat guy? Based on his language, based on Brian's language, do they want a dual threat quarterback? They've got a couple guys who are mobile coming in. But James Resar is 6'6". He's not really a dual threat. He's mobile, but he's still a pro style guy, as is Marco Lainez. I think Lainez has got more upside mobility-wise than anybody Iowa's had since maybe Brad Banks. But the point is, you may want that, Pat, and I may want that, Pat, but that doesn't mean that's what Kirk wants. And I've said the same thing, John.
Right.
Somebody brought up Paul Chryst as a potential candidate for OC, and the first reaction from a lot of people is, oh, why would you want that? It's the same thing. Well, guess what? If we're stuck with running this run first offense, pro style offense, you're not going to switch. As you said, Kirk's not going to switch to a spread. He's not going to do that. So if that's what you have, if Kirk's going to keep things philosophically and going in the same direction, then you get the best candidate you can that can run things, operate the offense in those terms. And a guy like Paul Chryst, to me, would be an excellent choice if we're going under the umbrella of a pro style run first offense.
Sure, Paul Chryst would be a great choice for Iowa. I mean, yeah, if you want to imagine Iowa with a different head coach, somebody who's more. I mean, listen, Wisconsin just went to Fickle. It's not completely unprecedented, and Wisconsin had been Berry ball for how many decades, right? So it's not unprecedented. I'm not saying it's impossible for Iowa to do that, but with Kirk seeming to be there forever, and Brian seeming to be there forever. I don't see Brian getting fired. It may be demoted, but I don't think he's getting fired. So what do? Well, you shore up the tight end room, you shore up the O-line, you bring in somebody like Cade McNamara.
I think he is more suited for a run first offense where he can be a game manager if he wants any chance of maybe playing in the NFL someday. It's probably not going to be as a starter. It'd be as a backup somewhere.
Right.
You know,
he's going to hold the clipboard.
Yeah, good. Look at a guy like C.J. Beathard, a guy like Ricky Stanzi. He didn't make it a real long time, but you can make a living in the NFL after being a quarterback in Iowa's offense. So
absolutely, and I could see that happening. It kind of like the inverse Rudock, right? Rudock came from, we got him from you guys. Jim Harbaugh coaches him up, and he does have a career, not a super long one, but he got himself a career in the NFL for a couple of years. So it's possible.